They're members of the community, and they should be treated as such. At the very least, opening the doors of public buildings that nobody is using during the nighttime to allow them not to freeze to death. And we're talking about winter storms. Do you want to go to the senior center in a winter storm anyway? Do you care about bingo that much? So I wanted to move on to an interaction that happened on the city council in I don't know how to pronounce the name, but it's in Boston. Okay, this is in the Boston area. Okay, this is in the Boston area, or in the outlying Boston area. It's in the crater zone from what Boston touches by being Boston. Okay, anyway, so a city councilman was talking to people about a proposed bill that would make it so that the local senior center and other locations during the night, when it was very, 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 very cold, they would allow the homeless to come in. And then when it's morning, before all the elderly come to, party at the senior center, pop their rice puddings and do shots of grape juice, whatever they do, before they come, the homeless leave. And that seems to be the proposal, right? And so he's defending that against people who are very, very against that, very opposed to that, even going after him for supporting that. And the thing that really gets me is that this is also in the fallout of how many homeless people freezing to death in the United States in December. You guys saw the stories. You guys saw the videos that came out. Those videos were horrific. Those were videos I expected to see in Ukraine, on the front line of soldiers freezing in the trench in the Donbass, not on the streets of Boston or on the streets of the United States. That's not what we should expect. I guess I did expect some of it. And every few days, if you ask my family, they would tell you, I would say something along the lines like, God, I would hate to be homeless tonight when it got really cold, because my mother was a homeless resident, and I have a deep sympathy for people during this time of year for that reason, because I know what she went through. And I don't wish that on any human being in the world. And so what this guy's doing isn't even building tons of homeless shelters or doing anything like that. He is just making it so those people during the winter don't literally freeze to death. That is the legislation. And he gets angry once he tries to explain what he's doing, and some of the people who oppose it start heckling. Watch the video. It's pretty crazy stuff.
Councilor Silvestri.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Lauren, for coming up. And I have to say, I commend you, Mr. Mayor, and the staff, and for making this happen. And I'll tell you why. I had the privilege of working on the emergency response team during COVID. And I was one that worked with a lot of our homeless population. They're not all bad people. They want a place to stay warm. They want a place to stay alive. And that's what we're looking at. We're not looking to keep any... Ma'am? Thank you. December 22nd, Buffalo, New York, one night, 43 people dead in the snow. Texas, 2 days later, 45 people dead in the snow.
Jesus.
Wait,
they will not shut up?
I promise you, I'm giving you my word, ma'am. Just like I went into the encampments in the city and made sure, you know what? When you give them people this much and you show them you a little respect, do you know what they do? They clean, they help, they want a place to be warm, and that's it. They don't want to bother anyone. They don't want to ruin anything. Ma'am, we're not closing the senior center for this to happen. Once the senior center closes, they come in. Before it even opens, they're gone.
Forget about the seniors. People want us to vote for you.
Why? Why are we forgetting about you?
So he's trying to explain, like, ma'am, don't worry about the senior center. They're not going to bother you. They don't want to bother you. They're freezing to death, and they need to be in there during the nighttime when it gets super cold. And so we're opening the doors. They'll leave before the senior center even opens. You won't even see them. And then she says, stop talking about the senior center. How do you expect us to vote for you? You listen to that speech, this person remembering the day days and the exact death counts for the amount of homeless people who froze on the streets, he remembers it. Probably because it means a lot to him, like it means a lot to me, like it means a lot to a lot of people. And he's trying to describe in detail exactly why they are saving lives here. And by not allowing them to come into these places, people are dying. And if we do not open these places, more people will die on the streets of their communities, not in communities all the way across the world, but in their communities, members of their communities. People don't like to consider unhoused people a lot of time to be members of the community, but a lot of times they are. They are. Absolutely they are. They've lived there a lot of times their whole life. It's part of the reason they're probably on the streets, because they don't want to leave, because they love that community. They know people there. They have possibly have job there. They possibly have kids there. They have roots there. They're members of the community, and they should be treated as such. At the very least, opening the doors of public buildings that nobody is using during the nighttime to allow them not to freeze to death. And we're talking about winter storms. Do you want to go to the senior center in a winter storm anyway? Do you care about bingo that much? That you're gonna go out in your car and crash to get your grape shots and bingo night on? And you care about that more than the people freezing to death, who, by the way, again, would not interact with you because it's during the nighttime. And she sees this guy's passionate speech where he knows the numbers for the amount dead, knows the days for when they died. And he explained in detail how it will not bother her or bother others in the way that they're concerned. And I hear somebody in a crowd yelling something about incentives, as if saying that they will not die is too much of an incentive. If we tell homeless people that we will literally not let them die, that if they are about to die, we will try to stop that from happening. If we allow that to happen, that's too much of an incentive, and the homeless around the country will swarm in saying, "Hey everyone, I heard that city will not let us literally freeze to death," which is the most base performance of what any city could do in a winter storm scenario to protect its population. This should be one of the first things a city prepares for as they're about to look down winter storms, is making sure that nobody literally freezes to death. Then then there's road management and making sure nobody crashes, stuff like that. But this is should be one of the first things, make sure nobody freezes to death, and they think that's too much of an incentive for homeless people. I'm sorry, but when I couldn't imagine passing through a city and being like, God, I need to call all my buddies to come over here from all across the country because they will literally not freeze to death here. Like, how that's going to be such an incentive to make you guys a hotspot. By the way, it would only even be an incentive if it was, which I find highly doubtful, if it was that much of an incentive, it would only be an incentive during the winter. And let's also say, like, somebody calling their friend saying, "Hey, you don't want to freeze to death, come here." That sounds like a good thing to me, if it is even an incentive, because that means there's going to be people in the center not freezing to death when they otherwise would have froze to death. Incentivizing them to what? Not die? Not freeze to death? Do you really want to wake up one morning, be drinking your cup of coffee, open the windows, and all you see are just coats lying face forward in the snow, covered up? Can't even see their skin, just the coats, just the clothing. Just wondering, what the fuck is that? And then you're wondering, you're thinking, eventually go out and you poke it and you realize it's a person, frozen to the bone, cold like a rock. That, you don't want to wake up to that. What kind of civil society wants to wake up to that? Incentives. Bullshit. Sorry. Let's continue with the video. Let's let the guy finish, since this woman won't.
For this to happen. Once the senior center closes, they come in. Before it even opens, they're gone.
Forget about the seniors.
Miss-
People want us to vote for you.
Why?
We're not going to.
Why are we forgetting?
Can you imagine threatening to say, "You want me to vote for you if you're gonna not let the homeless freeze to death?" Yes, because he's doing his job. Absolutely. How could you expect to ever vote for anyone who would let the homeless freeze to death?
This to happen. Once the senior center closes, they come in. Before it even opens, they're gone.
Forget about the seniors.
Miss-
People want us to vote for you.
Why?
We're not gonna be.
Why are we forgetting about you?
Counselor.
No,
I'm
Mr.
not-
President,
I'm not-
I can't, because you want to know what? We're talking about people's lives here. And you know what? If I have to lose some votes to save some lives, then I will do so. Because you want to know what? People are going to die in the street, and if you're going to look at them in the face and say you're okay with that, then be so. But you know what? I'm not. I'm not okay with burying people because it's 15 degrees out.
Thank you. Thank you.
Damn. Oh my God. Gotta say, I give the guy massive credit.
Councilor Silvestri.
Sorry, I had to just go back. I give this guy massive credit. I've been in these city council meetings before. I talk to city councilors. I talk to mayors. I talk to these people, especially in my city. And a lot of times the people who come to these interactions with them, they just gotta kind of sit there and bite their tongue as they hear people lie, as they hear people like say disgusting things. And the most they usually do is, well, let me give you some context for that. Or because they are politicians, they're public officials, and they're supposed to keep themselves orderly. Because as cool as this video is, some people see this and they say, God, he seems unprofessional, uncouth. And I know that's a terrible impression to take from this, but some people do. And they want to and they want to make sure that their residents know they care about them. And so you try not to snap at people, but some people deserve it. And that woman deserved it. She would not stop interrupting him to basically say, let him freeze to death. I don't want to give them the incentive to live here if it makes them not freeze to death. Because they might come here saying, golly, I'm not dead. She would rather them freeze to death. And as he's listing the dates and numbers, he remembers directly. No care in the world. Absolutely deserved every bit of it. Another thing I want to show you guys is this video was like a big story like 2 weeks ago. A guy was managing his shop and there was a homeless person outside of his shop. And so he was angry that they were there. And so he took out a hose, and according to him, he was doing some cleaning. And he took the hose and just sprayed down the homeless person in the cold. It was cold. It wasn't a summer day. It was winter. And he was spraying her down with cold water. And he has apparently, not only am I going to show you that footage, but he has released a response. He responded to the video, and he responded, and he's very sorry.
New at 10, a man caught on camera hosing down a homeless woman in the city of San Francisco. This video tonight sparking outrage. And this evening,
Also, be clear, dude was arrested, deserved to get arrested.
we are hearing from that man who says he was frustrated, and tonight he is sorry. KTVU's Amber Lee live in the city. And Amber, that video, again, touching off a lot of nerves here.
Absolutely, Mike. We're on Montgomery Street where the incident took place. There is a strong police presence out here tonight. An officer tells me they will be here 24/7 to make sure there's no violence after businesses that had nothing to do with the incident received threats.
This video posted on social media of a man spraying water at a homeless woman in San Francisco on Montgomery Street in the Jackson Square area is sparking outrage and backlash. The man is art gallery owner Collier Gwynn.
Dude, can I just say, art gallery owner is a little on the nose, isn't it? A little on the nose, huh? A little bit, isn't it? Like local Starbucks manager, like, really? Local Emerald Mine owner.
He tells me the video shows only part of what happened.
How I snapped. And that I apologize for tremendously. That's not myself.
Quit. Okay, can I just say, he snapped. Can we look at the video of him snapping? If I snapped, that would be me being like, yo, shut up. Like, I'm like trying to choke someone. You can see it on my face. Like, that would be me snapping. If I was to generally snap, that's how I would look. Can we go back and look at the footage where he quote unquote snapped? Can we just see, like, look how like, he's crazed he is, okay? Look at a snap.
And a man caught on camera hosing down a homeless
Look how he's standing. Look how he's standing. Yeah, he looks very enraged. He snapped, guys. His mental faculties were not there. Oh my God, he looks like a mass shooter. He looked so close, almost Jeffrey Dahmer. Oh God, he snapped. He snapped. Okay, sorry. Let's go back to the interview.
How I snapped. And that I apologize for tremendously. That's not my self.
Gwynn says the homeless woman first showed up in the area 2 weeks ago. He says he allowed her to sleep in his doorway for 4 days. Gwynn and other area business owners tell me they called police multiple times over her disruptive behavior and that they tried to get her help, but that she refused to leave and refused services.
Pulling her hair, screaming, yelling. She's psychotic. She's hallucinating.
On Monday morning, Gwynn says he was cleaning the street with a hose and repeatedly asked her to move and became frustrated when she refused. I asked him if he was sorry his actions were caught on video or that he thought what he did was wrong.
I'm totally sorry that I reacted where I tried to move her and did so in a way that was, not the right way.
The notion of anybody treating another human being like that on our streets is just gut-wrenching and horrible.
Supervisor Aaron Peskin represents that district. He says the homeless woman is known to authorities and neighbors both here in this area and nearby North Beach.
I've been in touch with the police. As far as I'm concerned, this is assault.
The front door of Gwynn's business was broken. He says it happened Tuesday afternoon.
Oh, damn. Oh, snap. There's revenge breaking of his business. Oh, snap. The community is not happy with him. It seems like the community doesn't really agree that she was so unbelievably much of a nuisance that deserved her getting hosed down in the cold. Never a proper solution to deal with it. By the way, the worst thing you describe is that she screams because she's like psychopathic or whatever. That's when you call authorities. That's when you get somebody who can actually help if somebody's screaming and panicking, things like that. You don't say, I'm going to take this wet hose and hose her down. That's going to stop her from screaming. What's even the logic there? Well, let's say she was screaming in that instance. We have no reason to believe in that instance she was screaming, but let's say she was. Do you think hosing her down is going to make her scream more, or is it going to make her scream less? Andy Keene, thank you so much for the Prime, being sub for 11 months. I appreciate it.
And that it was backlash for spraying water on the homeless woman. He says 3 men he doesn't know came to confront him.
They smashed the window. I'm not surprised. I understand people get outraged when they see things like that.
Supervisor Peskin tells me police are investigating this matter.
He was too angry to think logically. Look at him. I mean, that's a man enraged, near murder.
Says Gwynn should face consequences for his actions. A fire department spokesman says a crisis response team on routine patrol was able to engage the homeless woman, which resulted in her accepting city services. Mike?
And Amber, let me ask you about those officers you showed us behind you earlier. I mean, that is another angle to this story, because in the video we've been showing, you can see the front of a restaurant behind the man. This restaurant is not tied, to emphasize it, is not tied to this incident at all.
Absolutely. I reached out to them. They referred me to a social media post in which they said they had nothing to do with this incident and that it does not support the actions of Gwynn.
Right.
Okay, so I just want to quickly say, the first thing I want to say is that as much as we all think, definitely when you hear people talk about Ukraine, say oh, we need to take all of these like old vehicles from our stockpile and give them to the homeless instead of sending them to Ukraine. Of course, that's not what they're actually saying. Of course, they're saying, oh, why are we spending all this money? But we can't use these old trucks to feed the homeless. But let's entertain this for a moment. Oh, we should be sending all of that stuff not over to Ukraine, but to the homeless. We should be doing that to deal with these issues here. But a lot of those same people don't actually want to use that money to deal with the homeless because they don't want to spend federal funds anyway. And as much as the homeless are talked about and used as a political tool in instances like that, instances in many, 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 many other instances, just other political fights, a lot of the time, the people who would be most fervent about, oh, we can't deal with any of these other issues until we deal with the homeless, are also the same that would behave like this. Now, I'm not saying everybody who says, oh, let's not send the money over there to keep spending here is like that, but a lot of them are. Because as much as everybody talks about we need to deal with the homeless crisis, what a lot of people mean when they say that, even if they're going to virtue signal about wanting to help the homeless in public, is what they mean is, how do we get rid of them? Get them off the streets, these disgusting heathens, right? Kick them out here and make them wander. Just not in our city, not in our area. And as much as people will talk about wanting to help the homeless, when it comes to actually needing to do the things necessary to help the homeless by either housing them, getting them proper health services, or just making sure they literally don't freeze to death, when the rubber meets the road, they're not going to stand. They're not going to help them. They're not going to be there. And homeless people, despite being one of the most disadvantaged groups in the country, are also one of the most politically utilized groups in the country as a pawn, while they're not also still getting the services necessary for them to even survive the winter. If giving them housing through the winter during nighttime in buildings that they don't even live in, but are just in so they don't freeze to death, is so politically divisive already, that shows we have a lot of work to do before we get every single homeless person in this country housed, which should be the ultimate goal of any homelessness policy. Any policy to deal with the homeless is getting every single person who is homeless with a roof over their head, not just making them less visible, not just pushing them out of the way or being cruel to them, getting them out of the public perspective, but getting them proper housing, proper medical care, and eventually either back in the workforce or being cared for depending on their mental status and physical status. You have a lot of work to do, boys. A lot of work to do.